When I was 9 years old, like almost 15 years ago. Holy crap, I am old. Anyway, when I was 9, I was enjoying Minecraft videos on YouTube when I suddenly came across a Minecraft mod review for a Creepypasta mod. These creatures on the thumbnail were weird, creepy, yet interesting to my 9-year-old mind. After watching this video, I decided to look into these stories, and what I found that these tame Minecraft models hid the true horror of what lie within the Creepypasta wiki. A tall, faceless man who kidnapped children, an eyeless man in a mask who will steal your kidneys while you sleep, and a creature that hunts down children to devour them, the Seed Eater if you are not aware. This was horrifying for a young child, but it taught me something about myself. I love being scared. Okay, well, to an extent. I did not enjoy sheltering myself in the bathroom with the shower curtain open and body covering all the doors and cabinets with my body, thinking the rake was going to kill me in my sleep. But in other words, I love being scared. The adrenaline rush of hearing a bump in the night, a loud scream in the distance setting off my brain, a monster jumping at me from the shadows. I knew it was fake after a few years, but I loved it. Also, fun fact, I would actually use this to wake up while I was on the bus heading to school because I was sleep deprived. So I thought I would start a series of videos where I go into a deep dive of creepypastas from over the years, learning the history of their stories and lore, and seeing what they're like today in the modern day fandom. But so many to choose from. How am I to pick one? I'd like to start with the one who was my favorite as a child, a proxy that was so influential to me and my upbringing. He also continues to be my favorite to this day. I'd like to talk about Tobias Aaron Rogers, also known as Tiki Toby. Firstly, if you haven't seen my community post, basically the Transformer video is gone. The video got messed up in post, and all of the footage I had used as well as the audio, it's all gone. So I have to remake it, but I have a few videos I want to do first because that genuinely made me mad. So I need a little time before I jump back into that. Also, the big part of this video, while I get all the funny stuff out, this is a disclaimer for this video. As this is Creepypasta, especially in the earlier days, this whole series has a massive trigger warning. If you are sensitive to discussions of bullying, abuse of all forms, mentions of sexual assault, murder, suicide, self-harm, and body horror, viewer discretion is advised. I will put this warning before each of these videos for the sake of new viewers. I also want to note for this episode that I shall refer to Toby as Toby and not as Tiki Toby, as I don't feel comfortable calling him that. I understand it's part of his story, but as someone who was made fun of for their own tics, even though he's fictional, I'd rather not continue using it. Next, I have recreated some of Castaway's original pieces in my style, just to capture how Toby looks in my general style. I am merely making the series for fun, but sadly, some creators have problematic and criminal histories that I will be acknowledging, as I don't believe that it would be fair not to. Although I will do as much research as possible, I may make mistakes in this. So if I made any mistake, please do correct me. That's why the speed paint here is of my Creepypasta Mary Sue character, who you see on screen, and not the usual thumbnail, as I made a mistake when I wrote this and needed to fix the script. On May 23rd, 2013, a post on DeviantArt was made by an account called Castaway. This post was the original story of Toby. Alongside this is an edit from back in 2025 with this statement. Quote, "This story was written by a 12 to 13-year-old with a complete lack of understanding of the mental/health conditions depicted. I now see how offensive some might find the depictions in this story, and I truly do apologize, as I wasn't mature enough to understand the gravity of the subject matter at the time." This edited post will be brought back up later on. Looking back, the writing in general is actually pretty good for someone of their age, better than I could do. But as stated, there are some offensive depictions of mental and physical health conditions within the story. However, a big thing to note is that around this time, many of these stories had shocking or disturbing topics within them to get a reaction from people, as well as the misuse and generalization of mental/health conditions. It was sadly the norm at the time, and as stated in the post, Castaway was only 12 to 13 when they created Toby, and likely wasn't going to do a deep dive into the things they were writing about. Stories like Play With Me, aka Sally Williams, and the Laughing Jack are pretty big examples of this. If you are unaware of the original story, the short summary is that Toby is a 17-year-old boy who suffers from, quote, many different mental disorders. An extreme case of Tourette syndrome, as well as congenital insensitivity to pain, CIP, which causes people with nerves and pain receptors that do not develop properly, leading to them not feeling any pain. At the beginning of the story, Toby and his mother come home from the hospital, Toby being discharged with a bandaged arm and other cuts along his body. We are told Toby and his sister Lyra had recently been in a car accident, one that sadly took her life. We are noted immediately to Toby's notable appearance. Messy brown hair that seemed to have a mind of its own, which I don't understand, but that's coming from someone who has messy brown hair. Pale, almost gray skin, and dark eyes, which are noted to be different from his mother's green ones. Communicated to us next is his CIP or CIPA, and his Tourette syndrome, which caused so much bullying he had to be moved to homeschooling, not being able to get a proper education with the intense mockery he faced. He replays the events of the crash before he passed out, noting his sister's mutilated body, causing him to tear up. When they returned home, an old car belonging to his father is seen in the driveway. Toby asks his mother why he was even here, to which she tells him he wants to see his son. However, according to both characters, he was not at the hospital before Lyra passed away due to him being drunk, a common occurrence to him as noted by Toby. His father is ignored by his wife, Connie, as she attempts to help Toby to his room. The older man complains that he's 16 and can walk by himself, which is corrected by Connie, who states that he's 17. Toby goes to his room alone and is reminded of his family before his dad became a violent alcoholic, taking his anger out on his wife and children, a specific instance noted by Toby. Toby states that he would happily take all the abuse from his father as he couldn't feel pain inflicted by him, not like his mother and sister. We are then told Toby has been seeing things out of the corner of his eyes but believes it to be medication that he's on. During dinner he doesn't eat at all, not possessing an appetite. While trying to sleep, failing miserably, his mother comes in trying to comfort him. He asks when his father will leave, to which she states she doesn't know. I believe based on the wording, Toby's father had been kicked out for a bit, but after the crash came back to live at the house under the guise of mourning his daughter's death. But sadly, it is merely a means to stay in his old home, a manipulation tactic. After his mother leaves and his attempts to sleep continue to be unsuccessful, he cries, his mind running too quickly after all that has happened. As he decides to stare out of his bedroom window, he notices a large figure merely 2 feet shorter than the light post on the street. Despite his lack of features, Toby holds a nearly hypnotic stare with it before he blacks out, awakening the next morning, not being tired, but feeling like he hadn't slept at all. While awake, he felt like his body wasn't his own, only seeing everything he did. As the story goes on, Toby continues to feel strange while his mother cleaned, being ordered around by her husband. Toby began chewing his fingers till they bled, his memory would leave in gaps, he heard crickets in his pillow, saw sharks in the sink, and seeing ghosts outside his window. This all obviously concerned Connie, who took him to a psychiatrist. While talking with said psychiatrist, he heard a ringing sound. Looking out the window on the door, seeing the faceless man once more, which caused him to freak out after the doctor pulled him out of his mind. That night, as he struggled to sleep, he began to hear noises outside of his room. He walked out, the door slamming behind him, leaving in a moonlit hallway. He called out for his mother, but was greeted by his dead sister, her mangled corpse from the car crash staring him in the face, which caused him to back up into the tall, faceless man. He was surrounded by children with dark black liquid dripping from their eyes, the sight scaring Toby away, only to be tripped by a black tendril. Then he awoke with a start, completely out of breath. As he walked out, making sure he was no longer dreaming, he noticed his father smoking in the living room. His anger boiled, voices in his head beginning to chant, telling him to kill this old man, saying how he wasn't even there during his sister's death, that he deserved it. Toby tried to resist, although hating the older man, not wanting to kill him. Sadly, the voices and their influence were far too strong as he grabbed a kitchen knife and walked out towards his father. Without hesitation and a crazed look in his eyes, Toby killed his father brutally, the older man's attempt to defend himself being futile. The young boy turns around, his mother staring horrified at her son, which caused him to flee. He grabbed 2 hatchets, one old and one new, a lighter and a can of gasoline. He took it to the street, dumping the contents and lighting them as the cops began to close in. His vision was blurring. He was prepared to die, until a hand fell on his shoulder and the faceless man took him, the sound of ringing being the last thing Toby hears before everything goes dark. And that was the original story of Toby in a quick nutshell. Okay, maybe not that quick, but I tried my best. I have to say, learning once again that this story was written by a 12, 13-year-old, I applaud the writing that Castaway puts. Yes, there are definitely stereotypes to mental physical illnesses within, but like I said, this was very common in the fandom around the time, and heavily influenced young writers. I'm just glad the author can now see their mistake and reflect on them as an adult. Also, side note, Castaway is actually only a couple years older than me, which is actually kinda neat. Along with the story came a reference image made a few weeks prior to the story being released. However, the oldest image of Toby I was able to locate was a piece made on November 18th, 2012, in which is some basic information on Toby once more, as well as an interaction with Jeff the Killer and the Slender Man. Anyway, returning to the older and out-of-date reference sheet, there's a list of his relationships with the other characters within the fandom. He was stated to be canonically shipped with Clockwork, another creepypasta created by Soft Boys, this story being released the following month on the Creepypasta wiki. It was actually taken down for poor reviews, and she's definitely a video I plan to make in the future. His allies are pretty much most popular creepypastas, rivals being Masky and the Rake, I don't blame him on the Rake, and hating Lord Zalgo. Within the description, Castaway states that his last name is actually their mother's maiden name. In July of the same year, a height chart was given to us of Toby's canonical height from over the years, stating as young as 4 and being as old as 30. Notably, between the ages of 19 and 25, Toby is supposedly perceived as dead. Looking at the description of the piece, Toby's mind is a blur, and he seems to be separated from the Slender Man, working with a band of other criminals in regular society. He remembers the others, but he can't seem to tell if he made it all up, or if they're truly real. At the age of 30, whether Toby is actually alive is up for debate, but it is stated that he doesn't have much time left, and is most likely within a mental asylum or sentenced to death. Apparently, this was all something Castaway came up with on the spot, which is rather creative. This is some interesting bit of lore that I was not aware of, and I really dig it. However, on August 16th of the same year, his reference sheet was updated. On this new sheet, he is said to be 19 years old, 2 years after the events of the story. His birthday is said to be April 28th, and he was born in Denver, Colorado. A list of his disorders were also placed at the bottom of the screen, being as follows: CIPA, schizophrenia, Tourette's syndrome, PTSD, stated to be from the car crash, and amnesia. He is also stated to be one of Slender Man's proxies, a few others of note being Kate the Chaser, Masky. I know Marble Hornets isn't technically creepypasta, but this is the community. Let me live my life. And Hoodie, refer to my prior statement. There are different opinions on whether or not characters like Jeff the Killer and Eyeless Jack are also part of the Slender Man's group of proxies, but the original post not stating as such, and most of which being fan interpretation. Looking at the Villains wiki, some fun facts listed are that at the age of 30, he is 6 feet tall, he's considered one of the most popular creepypastas alongside characters like Slender Man and Jeff the Killer, and that if we were to go off of the age given to us and the date of the original story of his reference sheet, Toby would be 32 as of 2026. Another notable fact is that his original story was removed from the Creepypasta wiki, stating that issues with the fandom were what caused its removal. This is actually further elaborated on in the updated post made at the beginning of the original story. Quote, I also did not expect this story and character to gain the recognition that it did, which has caused a lot of distress over the years and led me to hate this story/character and deeply regret writing it at all. But at this point, it would be pointless to delete or doctor the story, so here it remains in its original online post. Although the story has been posted across the internet by others, this is the oldest and original point in which it has ever been shared. Looking into this a little more, for quite some time, Castaway began to feel guilty and ashamed of Toby, as well as the way people were claiming Toby to be real, videos of sightings of him being posted online. In 2020, Castaway made a post, stating that he didn't particularly want Toby in the Creepypasta fandom anymore, which caused the fandom to lose their minds. Some people, an example being a well-known creepypasta artist named I Just Wanna Have Fun, I'll tag them in the description, respected this decision. Most, however, were very unhappy and began to attack the creator. Some even made allegations about Castaway, causing an even bigger rift between him and the fandom, as stated once more in his update on the original story. Quote, "Over the years, people have been upset by me trying to exercise my rightful ownership over this story/character, and it has unfortunately become a popular thing for people to make up false claims to justify their completely disrespectful treatment, and also arguments that I don't deserve to have any control over my own creation. I have long since given up trying to fight against these things because the whole thing has been so traumatic. There's no happiness or joy left in it, and I just want to disengage and move on with my life." Many corporations have made merch for Toby, such as his hoodie, and taken it to use for profit, especially companies like Amazon. These profits were never seen by Castaway, and they are sick of the poor treatment they experienced over the years, and this has sadly caused a strong disdain for Toby in the fandom, which I can't exactly blame them for. Many people who spoke against Castaway, as I stated, say that they're hypocritical, as some statements made by them were that they don't like how Toby was portrayed over the years. This can be seen as hypocritical in my opinion, but that shouldn't diminish their opinions and wishes for their character. Since then, Castaway doesn't care anymore and has just let go of Toby and gave him to the fandom, his only wish being that nobody profits off their creation. Although rather difficult nowadays, I believe that is completely within their right. Was their needless harassment towards them for their creative changes? Yes, and that is their choice to make, and just because you or I don't approve of that choice doesn't really give people the right to go after someone. If you have such a problem with it, make your own characters. AUs exist. What I think others need to consider as well is that Castaway was only 12 or 13 when Toby was created. These implications of a silly, goofy Toby may have been something they saw was popular, and to make people happy, they allowed that to continue. They are allowed to regret choices they made as a child, and it won't be the end of the world. There was an attempt for Castaway to change Toby's design, and while it is well made, it just doesn't suit me personally, and that's okay. But again, people decided to be cruel to Castaway and just told people to forget about it. Again, this is not the end of the world, get over it. Just because you like something doesn't mean you get what you want whenever you want. Alright, moving on. I believe that many people struggled with the nostalgia of his design and how drastic this change was throwing them off completely. That was personally how I felt, but as I mentioned, it's the artist's decision and how they wish to portray their character. But what about the allegations? I did some digging, and I must admit this was rather difficult. Many people online mainly talked about them being hypocritical, some mentioning harassment against people online, but without any proof, just testimony, there isn't much I can go on. However, with the amount of people stating this, it's really hard to ignore. But here is what I was able to find on my own. Like I mentioned, with the number of testimonies regarding harassment of fans, that is highly likely, but I shall obviously put allegedly here as well as for the next statement. However, something with screenshots I found is what makes this disturbing. If you aren't aware, Sally Williams' creator, Mishy Mish, has been seen making artwork in regards to Sally, one where she is in sexual situations with older, sometimes adult characters, and this was after she was aged up to 13, which doesn't make it any better. I bring this up because Castaway has gone on to defend this action of Mishy Mish, which I find rather disgusting. Some people excuse this as someone who may suffer with trauma that they draw to cope with. Possibly, and while I am no professional, I will not add as if I am one, you shouldn't be posting this sort of thing online if this is to help you cope. Yes, it could be seen as a way to help others with the same trauma cope, but it comes off really badly, not just in poor taste, but also as a statement of your character. People may not know you're doing this for your trauma. It's not their business to know. And frankly, it's not our business to see. We put our entire lives on the internet, and it's really gotten bad. However, when it comes to things like this, I don't feel comfortable with people posting that stuff online. Frankly, it kind of seems like it's a true regard for your character and what you seem to enjoy in your spare time. As I was writing this section, I'm unsure of what to think overall. I mentioned how this was not the original speed paint, and that is completely true. I had completed most of this video, and when I found out about the Mishy Mish stuff, I was so angry. I deleted everything except for the artwork and decided to move on with other things. But I really didn't feel okay putting in all this work only to delete it. Okay, well, I guess the speed paint, but I never claim to be smart when I'm upset. I love Toby as a character, and I doubt that'll ever change, as he really helped me when I was struggling, canon and fanon. As I mentioned in the disclaimer, if I missed anything in regards to Castaway that should have been implemented, please comment down below so I can fix it within the description and pin a comment. I did my best with researching, but I also struggled to find concrete things, and the best I could find was on Tumblr and Reddit, most of which with very little to no screenshots. What I think wasn't done right is that it wasn't stated on things like the official Creepypasta wiki, a place where Toby was well known. Although his story may not be up there anymore, I believe it would be important, given that this is something serious. I don't think I should have had to do so much digging just to find one thing, but sadly I had to. More people were more concerned about that. Alright, back to a much lighter note. I'd like to discuss now Toby's portrayal in the modern day. This could be from videos, artwork, fanfiction, just about anything. What has stayed consistent is that goofy nature seen over the years. Yes, Toby can be very serious, cruel, and, a maniac. He's still seen with slight goofiness, despite many who despise the silly, so random, haha waffles persona he had. There are still remnants of that to this day. We've been given a lot of mixture of the two personalities, and I believe it works well. As someone with a similar personality, minus the murderous tendencies obviously, I think this works rather nicely. Also, if you want a good headcanon for Toby's love of waffles, go watch a weird cosplayer on TikTok and YouTube, and watch their Ask Toby video. Personally, my favorite headcanon of all. Alright, I'm done with this. If you have any headcanons for Toby, tell me in the comments. I'm sure I missed quite a bit, and honestly, that's to be expected. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and the artwork I made as well. I wanted to create some of Castaway's original works and put it in my own style, but obviously, all of this artwork referenced is from them. Toby has held a special place in my heart, so I wanted to honor the original works done by his creator. Thank you for watching, and have a good night. Bye-bye.